What is going on, everyone? Let's do another list on corruption. My last video was about the most corrupt cities in the United States, and today we'll be looking at the most corrupt states. Now, there are many ways to judge how corrupt a place is. We're going to go by the most convictions per capita. Some states have struggled with the same issues of embezzlement, extortion, bribery for decades and have done zero to change, which explains why Americans are extremely cynical about our elected officials. Most politicians are looked at like a used car salesman. You know the guy I'm talking about, the guy who's doing business out of a trailer in a poorly fitted suit and has a stack of papers from injury lawyers on his desk? Yeah, that guy. Every 2 to 4 years, half of America thinks they picked a winner, a decent human being that will work to make their life better. And half of America can't believe the other half chose this idiot and believed all his BS. About halfway through most elected official terms, about 75% of the country has decided they need to get rid of him. And most of the time, it's because either they're not doing their job properly or there's reports or convictions of corruption. It's in every city, every state, every country, matter of fact, and it's every political party. Nobody is squeaky clean. And these are those states. Number 10, Florida. The frequency and acceptance of Florida's corruption is evident in the numbers. From 2000 to 2009, it led the nation in the number of federally convicted public officials with more than 800. Things haven't improved much over the years in the Sunshine State. Just last August, a suspended city commissioner in Tallahassee who once ran the Florida Democratic Party pled guilty to corruption charges, admitting he accepted money from Uber and an undercover FBI agent. You know, the Uber wasn't the one that sprung the trap on him. I'm thinking it was the FBI agent. He gave money to, anyway, he took money in exchange for his influence. Tallahassee Commissioner Scott Maddox and his longtime associates Paige Carter Smith agreed to plead guilty to 3 charges: wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy to commit tax fraud. They were originally charged with more than 40 counts each as part of the FBI investigation into corruption in City Hall in Tallahassee. Yeah, I don't think I'd be rolling the dice with 40 counts either. From 1976 to 2018, Florida has had 2,189 corruption convictions. With almost 22 million residents, that gives them a conviction rate of 1.07. Number 9, Georgia. Georgia is in the middle of a cleaning house of sorts. Over the last 6 or 7 years, they've seen an increase in corruption investigations. They've been cracking down after years of sweeping things under the rug. The Peach State has been so bad over the years, I think they may need to crack down even harder. I'm thinking old school Soviet Union style crackdown, complete with re-education camps for politicians, big screens flashing, tax dollars are not your dollars. They've made progress. The Center for Public Integrity had them at the number 1 spot back in 2012, so now they're number 9. Not bad. Recently, a couple Georgia politicians have come under fire for corrupt practices. Senator and a gubernatorial candidate have pled guilty to insurance fraud, false reporting of a crime, and making false statements to police. In another incident, a federal grand jury charged Insurance Commissioner Jim Beck with fraud, prompting Governor Kemp to rightly call for his resignation. These are just a couple of examples of the type of things that are going on in the Georgia government. From 1976 to 2018, they've had 1,145 convictions in a state of around 10 million people. That's conviction rate of about 1.09. Number 8, New Jersey. New Jersey has had some problems with corruption over the years, and I know all across the internet people just sighed and said, no kidding. When a New Jersey politician says there's no corruption, you treat it like a magician that says it's real magic. The only ones that believe it are children, idiots, and people that are in on it. New Jersey governors wield more power than most, if not all of their counterparts across the nation, and perhaps no one has used it more masterfully than former Governor Chris Christie. We went over all this in the last video, with Newark being an all-star in the world of corruption, so we won't get into all his scandals, but most of them center around his people. Magically, Chris Christie came out clean as a whistle, like a well-fed wizard. It's really strange. From 1976 to 2018, they had 1,139 convictions in a state of about 9 million. The conviction rate is 1.24. Number 7, Ohio. Ohio hasn't had much to be happy about in a very long time, aside for the Buckeyes, maybe. The Browns and the Bengals ain't doing it for him. Its former governor, Robert Taft, was convicted in 2005 for ethics violations for his involvement in CoinGate, an investment scandal centered on Republican Party fundraiser and coin dealer Tom Noe, who pocketed $13 million from a fund for the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Dick move, Tom. As he was taking office in 2011, Governor John Kasich tried to keep the public from seeing the resumes of those who applied for jobs in his administration. He didn't want any information out about that. He didn't want their names out until they were already confirmed or approved. He didn't want to conduct his swearing in public, and he only caved when newspapers protested. He also tried to hide his official calendar from the people, and he remained governor until 2019. Now, the thing is, those really aren't illegal, and they're not really part of corruption, but what they are part of is the Center for Public Integrity. They kind of rank places, cities, governments on their integrity. Yeah, that's in the word. Since his administration wasn't very transparent, he got a big fat F, along with all the other things going on. I mean, right now, the FBI, along with a whole bunch of attorneys, have a major case going on in Dayton, as we speak. Involves a mayor from the area. Anyway, Ohio has almost 12 million residents, and since 1976, they have had 1,603 corruption convictions, giving them a rate of about 1.33. Number 6, Virginia. Before I did this list, I didn't know much about Virginia politics, so I did some reading. I'm sort of sorry I did. Do these people ever get away with anything? Is the first question I asked. Then I thought, ever. Do they get away with anything ever was the second question I asked. Virginia long claimed that it had been an ethical political culture based on their gentlemanly behavior. No. Events prove otherwise in 2014. Former Governor Bob McDonnell was convicted on federal corruption charges. As you can imagine, the whole delusional gentlemanly reputation thing was out the window about the same time the governor called a criminal defense attorney and a bail bondsman the same day. Evidence presented in court showed that McDonnell and his family accepted $177,000 in gifts and loans from one person, Johnny Williams, the then CEO of a tobacco-turned-health supplement company. How does that work? You're in an industry that's killing people one week and then trying to save them the next week. Doesn't make sense. And I know it happened over a longer period than 1 week. Stop typing. Anyway, loans, gifts, and $20,000 rounds of golfs really weren't okay in Virginia at the time. Still aren't. Either was the New York shopping spree the governor's wife had, or the Rolex that the governor got. All this was barred under state law, at least everything after the first $250. That was okay. You could take that, but everything else was kind of frowned upon. So Virginia has 8.5 million residents. They've had almost 1,200 convictions, giving Virginia a 1.38 conviction rate. Way to go, Virginia. Number 5, Pennsylvania. If Philadelphia's district attorney going to the big house doesn't get your motor running for some corruption talk, you could check out Pennsylvania's record on judicial accountability. They rank 48th out of 50. And electoral oversight, they rank 47th out of 50 by the Center of Public Integrity. 2 weeks into his federal trial in 2017, District Attorney Seth Williams pleaded guilty to a single count of accepting a bribe from a businessman. U.S. District Attorney Paul Diamond said that he was not inclined to trust Williams would show up for his sentencing, so he got no bail. He was let out of the courtroom in handcuffs. That's gotta suck. Going past all the people you've been working with for the longest time. Oh, brutal. Most of Pennsylvania's shenanigans go down in Philly. I mean, it's just about where this country got rolling politically, and it was our capital for some time. So a lot of politics been going on there. They've had a lot of years to perfect corruption. With almost 13 million residents, 1,828 convictions, Pennsylvania comes in 5th with a 1.41 conviction rate. Way to go, Pennsylvania. Still love the state. Number 4, New York. This was a big one on my last video, at least New York City was. And really, that's where most of the corruption happens in New York. Not a year goes by that they don't have some sort of major corruption investigation going on. And this goes back many, many years, like early 1800s, at least when they started recording it. I'm sure it was going on since the first day anyone showed up here. In recent years, Democrat Sheldon Silver was charged with exploiting his position by accepting millions in bribes and kickbacks. Then less than 4 months later, it was the state Senate leader, Republican Dean Skelos' turn. Federal prosecutors charged him with bribery, extortion, and fraud connected to his role in 2 companies and a no-show job he secured for his son. Basically, they gave him a job, gave him money, and his son never showed up for work. Continued to work there, I guess. Or not work there. I don't know how that works out. Wish my dad could get me a job like that when I was young. Skelos, who I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, was the 5th straight Senate leader to be charged with corruption. 2 months after that, the Senate's second-ranking Republican, Thomas Lebos, was convicted of lying to the FBI about a scheme that he used to get his son a job. Getting people jobs in New York, getting people arrested. Yeah, I'm sorry if I pronounced both those names wrong. Anyway, moving on. Since 1976, they've had 3,000 convictions, giving them a 1.44 conviction rate. Number 3, Tennessee. The often forgotten that it exists state of Tennessee has had some shady happenings around the state capital of Nashville. The volunteer state experienced a major scandal in 2005 known as Operation Tennessee Waltz. 7 lawmakers were arrested on bribery charges, all of whom were already suspected of corruption. Now, this was led by State Senator John Ford, who took a $55,000 bribe. He agreed to create some laws to help a phony company named eCycle. Here's the bad news for the corrupt politicians. It was really federal agents running this imaginary company. Tennessee adopted what was thought to be sweeping ethics reform after the lawmakers were arrested. 13 years after the scandal rocked the legislature, there are questions about whether the lawmakers have neutered the reform and created loopholes as wide as my cousin's ex-wife's yoga pants. Political observers say there's far too many ways to get around the state's campaign finance regulations. In a state of 7 million, they have had 1,100 convictions, giving them a 1.5 conviction rate. Number 2, Illinois. Like New York, most of Illinois corruption comes from its biggest city. In this case, it's Chicago, not New York. In case you didn't know the difference. You don't own a map or something like that. Anyway, as I said in the city corruption video, 4 of the 7 Illinois governors elected between 1960 through 2006 went on to serve time in prison. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that Illinois has a bit of a corruption reputation. Former Governor Rod Blagojevich infamously tried to sell President Obama's vacant Senate seat and went on to further embarrass the state of Illinois by relishing in the resulting limelight, most notably by appearing on season 9 of Celebrity Apprentice. He also did The Daily Show, David Letterman, and the show that takes people whose career have seen the final curtain, but they still crave attention and welcomes them with open arms. He was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in Costa Rica. In a state of 12 million residents, they've had over 2,100 convictions, bringing their corruption conviction rate to 1.65. And number 1, Louisiana. Some Louisiana residents might consider it a victory not to have a new political scandal every single year. Sadly, they haven't had that feeling of a victory in close to 60 years. For years, the Bayou State has been known as one of America's most corrupt states. These people take it to a new level. Louisiana doesn't even try and hide their dirty laundry, it would appear to the casual observer. You would think new incoming elected officials would say to themselves, you know, the FBI views this state as low-hanging fruit to boost their conviction rate. Maybe we should get on the straight and narrow for a bit. They never do. Access to information and judicial accountability remain the worst in the country in Louisiana. With 5 days left remaining in Louisiana's legislative session, the state Senate approved a deal which made it kind of okay to hide all the public records from the public. You know, the people paying their salaries that actually elected them. They passed a thing where they could hide a bunch of stuff from people. That didn't go well. It's still in the courts from my understanding. With 4.6 million residents, they've had 1,252 convictions, giving them a 2.57 conviction rate since 1976. Now, we had Washington, D.C. on the city corruption video, but if it were added to the state video, because a lot of people consider it kind of like a state, it would still be number 1 with a 17.40 conviction rate. Can you believe that? 17. Holy crap. All right, so that is my top 10 most corrupt states in the United States. Obviously, if you add the word states, it's going to be in the United States, I imagine. Anyway, don't forget all the links below. Subscribe if you already haven't. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.